Morning, guys. Can you hear me? Those
Yes, I
online,
can hear you.
you can hear clearly, right? Okay. Okay. So now let's continue from the previous slides. Previously, we had seen about the details about various types of purchasing methods and what are the ways in which the communication can take place. Now, let's start. Systems contracting, it relates to ordering mechanism employed during the life of the contract, often used in manufacturing environment for ordering of MRO materials. When you say MRO materials, is maintenance, repair, operations materials, which can be like spare parts, machineries, tools. Contemplates a high degree of cooperation between the buyer and a supplier, facilitating a reduction in inventory for both the buyer and the supplier. Ordering is accomplished by designated buying organization personnel using an order release form so designed as to permit the supplier to use the form for stock picking and order assembly. So this is the way in which a third party organization is used to make the necessary ordering process from the buyer. So, sorry, from the supplier. So that kind of relationship, the buyer and the supplier should they should have a kind of strategic relationship to, have a mutual understanding to accept this kind of a contracting. Contemplate sharing buying organization usage estimates and schedules to the supplier so that in an ideal condition, the method acts similar to stockless purchasing. So basically, this technique is the main aim of this technique is to reduce the inventory for the supplier for the buyer side and to make the process of doing the purchasing more easier. Contracts for just in time. So just in time is a very popular concept. Maybe you guys have heard about it. So this is something like as and when in a complete process, starting from receiving the raw material, then the raw material issued to the, there is a lot of time being wasted. Firstly, the raw material lies in the store for a long time. Then from the store, it will go to the, for example, it's a production, then it will go to the production line and it will stay there for maybe 1 or 2 days. And then after that, the production is done, the final goods will again stay in the store for another few days till the time it reaches the customer. So this way, a lot of time is wasted from the time the raw material is ordered to the time the final goods is dispatched to the customer. So the just-in-time concept was created to reduce or to completely, remove that kind of a wastage which happens in a supply chain. Relates to the ordering mechanism employed, contemplates a contract providing for just-in-time, similar to systems contracting with one major difference. GIT is primarily used for manufacturing materials and components. Systems contracting used primarily for MRO. So basically, the difference between the systems contracting and just-in-time is that the systems contracting is mostly used for the maintenance, repair, operation items, wherein just-in-time is used for manufacturing materials or raw materials or components which actually go into the products. So basically, in system contracting, the inventory at the raw material level, the inventory at the what do you say, a spare part store is reduced, wherein in the just-in-time, they try to reduce the inventory at the main store, the raw material store. Then they will try to reduce the inventory at the factory shop floor. Then they will try to reduce the inventory in the final finished goods dispatch section. Provides reduced inventory investment, reduced warehouse space, better inventory turnover, purchase savings in lower prices, and paperwork simplification. So basically, in this technique, the order comes as and when the final goods has to be dispatched to the customer. So let's say there is a product which has to be dispatched after 1 week, and after 1 month, and the total cycle time from procuring the item, getting it in the store, going to the production, getting it produced, and getting dispatched and reaching to the customer is, say, 15 days. So the process will start, maybe from 13, maybe or 12 or 13 days from the date of getting the client order. So this way, the companies, the organization try to reduce the wastage, what happens. And this is very risky process also, because if there is any delay happen at any stage, even a small delay can cause, it can translate to delays in the other steps, and can, make delay in the final dispatch to the client, and can cause you penalty or loss of reputation. So that's why just in time is not adopted by all the organizations, and there is always a safety stock or a buffer stock of the materials. And those organizations who adopt this technique, it requires a lot of hard work and a lot of thorough follow-up and scheduling. Key differentiation between just-in-time and systems contracting. In system contracting, purchases are made in large batches with infrequent deliveries, wherein just-in-time contracting, purchases are made in small lots with frequent deliveries. In systems contracting, selection of suppliers are made from multiple sourcing with short-term contracts, whereas in just-in-time contracting, single source is considered for a given part with a long-term contract. So basically, the system contracting is for items which are very easily available in the market. They are not very complex in nature, in technical or in terms of the final, and it's not going to contribute to the final product which is being produced or manufactured. And wherein the just-in-time is used for those materials which are very critical. Though they don't have lots of suppliers in the market, there will be, dedicated maybe 3 or 4 few suppliers only. And it is more preferred for just-in-time to have a contract with a single supplier, so that there is very, very close and tight collaboration. Because if there are multiple suppliers, the relationship will not be that much strategic, that much close, and that efforts will not be 100% from the supplier. So it's always advised for just-in-time to go for a long-term contract with a single source. In system contracting, evaluation of suppliers are done on the basis of price, delivery, and quality in that order, wherein in just-in-time contracting, same is done based on products, quality, delivery performance, and price. Zero rejection is expected. So the evaluation is almost similar. The only thing is, in just-in-time, the rejection should be almost zero. As I told you, that in system contracting, it's going to be about the stock which has been maintained for some spare parts or machine. So in that case, it's not going into the final product, and it's very rare that because of some wrong item which is received, it's going to affect the final dispatch of the product. However, in case of a just-in-time, since it's a critical raw materials or components being procured, what happens if even a single rejection comes? It translates to delay in the production, delay in the dispatch, and finally the client will get upset and may cause penalty to you. So that's the main evaluation criteria, that the rejection level, the rejection may be based on the quality or maybe based on some kind of packing or some other issues. So any kind of rejection will not be tolerated. In system contracting, negotiation with supplier is done to achieve lowest possible price, wherein in just-in-time contracting, product quality, fair price, long-term contract is the prime objective. So as I told you, in system contracting, there will be so many suppliers. For example, let's say for nuts and bolts, you are making a system contracting way, you want to reduce the inventory of those nuts and bolts. You will have so many traders outside in your local market. So you can, negotiate as much as possible, and you can keep multiple sources. It's not a problem. That will be the main criteria. The price will be the main criteria. However, when you consider just in time, what you have to consider is you need to consider a long-term contract. You should definitely, the price is a very critical factor. The price should be fair enough, wherein there will be, it will cover the bare margin, the minimum margin of the, the supplier, or maybe a little more than his minimum margin since he is supporting you. And it should have a good product quality commitment. The supplier who has been chosen for the just in time should have a very stringent quality control measures. In system contracting, time is spent on great deal of formal paperwork, whereas less time is spent in formal paperwork in case of just in time contracting. Yes, negotiation, everything should be done in the initial stage, because once the contracts commence, it will be very problematic to go in the negotiation at that stage, because there is no stock kept, and the production is 100% relying on the supplier sending the item, the right item. Our requirement, yes. We will give them like every month, what's our plan, or this is the date we want. We will give them very small lots. The organizations will give small lots, and throughout the contract, yeah, till the end of the contract. So that thing has to be kept in place, and that's why if anything happens, like if as you said, if again renegotiation happens during that time, it will be a big problem, because there is no stock kept, and the production, the sales, everything depends on the supplier supporting in sending the raw materials on time. That depends on the contract clause, what kind of clause you keep. So if it is a fixed price, it's a fixed price. There's nothing, it cannot be changed. There are force majeure situations like maybe flood, earthquake, war, like that. That is a different scenario. But if in the contract it's mentioned that for 6 months or for 1 year, the prices are fixed, that means the prices are fixed. That cannot be varied. Yeah, there are cases wherein there is a clause in the contract, like the prices will be variable, or there may be, various techniques of pricing, maybe cost plus margin. The supplier will say whatever is there are some index, right, in the market, wherein the prices are mentioned every day. For example, the gold is all, you can see the prices of gold every day, what's going on in the market is going to remain the same all over the world. Similarly, such index, if available, the supplier will say, okay, whatever the market index is there, plus 20% of my profit, I will make the pricing. So that kind of a clause has to be mentioned. Use of standing orders. Additional instrument used to facilitate ordering normally are negotiated and contain fixed prices during the ordering period, sometimes called open-ended ordering. Like system contracting are similar to a requirement or other indefinite delivery type contract. So basically, this is like a kind of a blanket agreement wherein there is no anything fixed, and there is just a basic agreement between the supplier, and as and when the requirement comes, the quantity and the time is mentioned and the order is placed accordingly, and it can even be placed by the end users. E-procurement, procurement innovation using technology. What is the e-procurement? It's a purchase of goods or service using electronic media with an ultimate goal of paperless purchasing, thus eliminating including the statement of work, requisition, solicitation, purchase order, delivery, task order, invoice, payment, document, etc. So basically, nowadays you see in most of the organization there is nobody is sending the purchase order through post or courier. Nowadays everyone is sending by email. So that is a form of e-purchasing, wherein there is as much attempt as possible to reduce the paperwork in the form whenever it is about requisition or purchase order or invoice or any such papers which are included in the purchasing cycle. Technology and the procurement process: analyze, source, transact, pay, manage. So this is normally the procurement cycle which is been summarized. Analyze and plan, spend analysis, stakeholder requirements, market analysis. So this is the cycle. Starting of the cycle will start with the getting the requirement, doing the market study, developing the strategy. All those process comes under analyze. Then once the necessary decision has been made as to how the purchasing method is going to be adopted, then will be the process of sourcing, wherein sending RFQs and RFPs, requests for quotations, reverse auctions. Maybe in some cases there may be a reverse auction wherein any item can be requested and the supplier will start bidding for it, and it will start going down, and whoever will bid the lowest will get the order. Tender evaluation tools. So these are all the steps in the sourcing. So it can be in a simple way. Maybe if it's a simple requirements or something very repetitive items or like that, it can go through a simple RFQ or RFPs, and it will go to the complex process of tendering, wherein there is a big project which is to be undertaken, and hence it goes in a tendering process. Transact. So when the actual the process of receiving the goods and other things happen, the transaction starts happening. ERP system, catalogs, electronic purchase orders, automatic workflow, vendor manage inventory. Then is the payment. Once the goods has been dispatched or the work or the service has been done, how the payment will happen. So these are basically how the technology can be used in the procurement process, starting from the analyzing process right till the process of supplier evaluation. Payments can be done through electronic transfer, teletransfer, e-card, expense management system, evaluated receipt settlement, etc. So the technology is brought for each and every step to reduce the number of papers being exchanged between various stakeholders. Manage basically is about the evaluation of the supplier or managing the supplier once the goods started coming. Contract management, supplier relationship management, collaboration and innovation, supplier development. So all these stages in the managed stage can be used. The technology can be used. Key success factors: do something now, keep it simple, focus on tangible incremental benefits, understand your stakeholder and their day-to-day needs, prioritize efforts on those items that will deliver the most benefit, don't create barrier to success. So basically, what are the main key success factors is like you need to take some kind of action, and it has to be taken or initiated immediately. It should not be kept till the time something comes up. For example, you feel that there is less number of a supplier, or let's say the supplier is located only in one area, and you have a feeling that it is a big risk to the organization. So start working on it immediately, rather than something happens in that area and all the suppliers are not able to send you the material, and you don't have any other suppliers other than that area, and it can cause a big problem to the organization. And focus on whatever the critical items, high value items, which contribute majorly to the top line of your organization. And also keep it simple and don't create any kind of a barrier to the success. So maybe in case of your personal ego, or maybe in case of some other barriers, should not cause a hindrance to your action, which can lead to ultimate success. So e-procurement agents are some of this, like Ariba, 𝗪𝗺, LAS, Katera, Supplier Select, Scan Market, YAB, and you may have heard of Alibaba, and now so many other e-procurement ways have come. Reverse auction. What's a reverse auction? As I told you, it's like similar to an auction. In auction, the prices go up for your product, what you list. However, in reverse auction, the prices go down as and when the suppliers bid for that item. It makes sourcing faster, easier, and more effective without disrupting the procurement process. It empowers a supplier manager to shift from manually conducting RFQ process to managing a tool that accelerates, optimizes it. So this is something, to speed up the process and to get the best price. Because like if it is the RFQ process, each and every supplier has to need to send the RFQ. Then you need to wait for each and every supplier to send the reply. Then you make a comparison sheet, and then you negotiate, and so much time is spent. So rather than doing that, if an item is something of a very simple nature, it doesn't have any kind of technical complexity, something repetitive item, and it is very standard item, then it can be put into a reverse auction site. The suppliers can be informed that on this date, the reverse auction is going to happen. The suppliers will participate in the reverse auction, and the best price can be received. However, there is one problem with the reverse auction, is that suppose if the starting point of the reverse auction, if it is not correctly chosen, suppose the correct value of, say, a Siemens motor is, let's say, $10,000, but the reverse auction starts at $20,000, and there are not too many suppliers, suppose, who participate in the reverse auction, and it get closed at $15,000, it's going to be a big loss to the organization. So what is the starting point in the reverse auction has to be properly provided. Benefits, open competitive bidding. So it's a competitive bidding because everyone is participating at the same time, and when they see that the other supplier is giving something, let's say the supplier B is quoting some price, the supplier A will definitely try to win over it, and there is kind of a live competition which is happening in the reverse auction. Automation of many steps, as I told you, sending the RFQ, getting the quotation, all these steps are skipped. Massive supplier access, anonymous bidding event, objective and fair process. This is considered to be a very fair process, because many times it happens in the procurement function that there is a kind of a one supplier who may be the buyer may be favoring that supplier, and once he get a quotation from other suppliers, he will tell his friend, he will that, see, the other suppliers have quoted this price, you quote little less than this price, and you will get the order. So such kind of unfair practices will not happen in case of reverse auction, because everyone is quoting at the same time and it's a live process. Acceleration of negotiations. As I told you, if it's a standard RFQ process, you need to, once you get the quotation, you do negotiation and again renegotiation, and it takes a lot of effort to call them or to send them email or to meet them. So this kind of time saving happens because of reverse auction. Supplier don't submit a quote, they compete. So, this is how there is a reduction in the time and also the price when there is a reverse auction process. Typical sourcing stages, how it saves the time. Identify the item, gather volume, establish price, list suppliers, document terms. Form RFQ, research suppliers, quality suppliers, mail RFQ copies, answer questions, collect responses, review responses, shortlist supplier, interview suppliers, negotiate price. Contract low bidders, review samples, quality if needed, award purchase, cut purchase order. So this is basically the the e-procurement process, in which there at various stages, which is mentioned here, the time can be saved, as well as it can cost to be very fair and to save the cost. What can be reverse auction? Indirect of MRO. So what kind of items or services can be used for reverse auctioning? As I told you, this process can only be used for something which is very simple item, which is not technical in nature, and which is not causing any kind of, it's not adding a value to the items or services which the organization is selling to his clients. So such kind of items and services can be included in the reverse auction. So there can be like indirect of MROs like stationaries, office supplies, safety supplies, stretch wrap film. So these are very general items. It is not any technical in nature, and it is very readily available in the market. Services, janitorial service, waste disposal, wireless service, security service. So asbestos and demolition. So for example, there is a requirement for a cleaning contract, and that cleaning contract for a building. So there are lots of facility management companies there. So a reverse auction can be conducted. Standard conditions can be mentioned, and what are the scope of work can be mentioned. And whoever bids the lowest will get that get the contract for that service. So such kind of services can be e-auction. Direct material, corrugated boxes, papers, seat bed assemblies. So such kind of items can be used for reverse auction. Spot or capital equipment, semi-trailer vans, AC wall mount units, assembly tooling package, clothing, forklift, rubber medical gloves. So anything like that, standard items, which can be even in capital in nature, like a forklift, can also be reverse auction. Okay. So this is about the contract. Now let's discuss about the contract. Contract definitions, contract formation, requirements, contract types, termination and remedies, other legal concepts related to contracts. What's the objective here in this chapter will be to recognize the legal requirements of contract formation. Please keep in mind that this is fundamental course providing the basic information you will need in sourcing management. It is not a course in the law and doesn't replace the need for obtaining sound legal advice when actually forming the contract. So you need to understand, this is just to give you a hint about what exactly the contracting is and what are generally the terms and conditions which are incorporated, and it doesn't form or it doesn't certify you as a specialist in making the contract. US legal system based on English common law, Louisiana law based on French code, Napoleon and other French laws. Relationship between two or more people defining rights and obligation, 5 essential elements of a contract. See, so basically regarding a purchase order and a contract, even a purchase order is an agreement between a buyer and a supplier. However, it will it's for a very simple repetitive item or something like which is which is you buy an item, it's delivered and it's finished. However, a contract is for multiple items or multiple services, and which is going to be dispatched over a period of time, and there are a lot of variables involved, and there is a lot of complexity and technicality involved. In that case, it's very important to go for contracting rather than a simple purchase order, because each and every obligations, terms and conditions, responsibilities, liabilities, everything has to be very clearly defined in the agreement. So what are the essential elements of a contract? Offer and acceptance. So there has to be an offer made and an acceptance has to be done from either side. Mutual intent. There has to be an intent to go for a contract. Consideration was paid. This is required by the Uniform Commercial Code. If not, then the contract is an agreement. Consideration is mostly in the form of a money, that some kind of a product and service is provided, and if a money is some amount is paid, that is called a consideration. Capacity. Who is in capacity to contract is a person who is of sound mind and above 18 years, and lawful purpose. It is something which is not illegal or not is not breaking any law of that area. What does the contract contains? To be legally enforceable, a contract must contain the following elements: mutual agreement, evidence of a meeting of the minds, legality, must have a legal purpose, consideration, an exchange of value or money. Capacity, the parties must be legally able to contract. These elements will be reviewed individually in the section that follows. Common law, judge-made or judicial law based on the theory of precedent. Precedent, a legal principle established in previous court decision which is involved similar or analogous fact situation. Written contracts. Written contract must contain identification of the parties responsible for contract, signature of the above, clearly identified subject of the contract, specific terms and condition, identification of consideration. So what are the key elements of a written contract is to identify the parties, what is the consideration which has been provided, and what is the subject or the objective of that contract, and the necessary terms and conditions. The statute of fraud requires the following types of contract to be in written form. Goods sold under Uniform Commercial Code, exceeding $500 not specifically manufactured for the user, contracts for sale or transfer of real estate, contracts to assume the debt or duty of another. Oral contracts. Oral contracts must contain the sale element as a written contract to be legally enforceable. Principles of departmental reliance, when it can be shown that reliance on the oral promise will produce substantial or unconscionable injury to the promise or will justly enrich the promiser. So oral contracts are very rare, and nowadays it's rarely happens, but yeah, there are cases of oral contracts. For example, there is a kind of oral agreement between McDonald's and Coke. So, there are some cases where there is an oral agreement, and it should follow this principle of reliance, where each party understand the risk involved in doing that, and this can either injure one party or it can, give advantage to the promiser. If an oral contract not required to be in writing, goods under $500 is modified so that it falls within the statute of frauds, then the contract must be in writing to be enforceable. Unilateral and bilateral contracts. Contracts can be unilateral or bilateral. Unilateral, generally a unilateral contract is one in which one party makes an offer and the other responds by performance. So there is an example. I promise to pay you 100 AED dirham if you clear the strawberry in front of my house. When you do so, my promise now binding in a unilateral contract. So basically, it is like there is one promise made from one party, and there is no any kind of return reply or something. So basically, what the main principle of a contract says that there has to be an acceptance for the contract to be enforced, or suppose if any promise is made, and even if there is no any confirmation which is taken place, but that promise, the activity which has to be done to fulfill that promise is done by the other party, then the party who is promising is binding to do that to make the promise happen. For example, like in this case, even if there was a promise made and if the other party did not give confirmation, but they did the work of clearing the strawberry, that means that work has been done and the person who is doing the promise has to pay this amount. So that is a unilateral contract. Bilateral is wherein both the parties, there is a one party who gives the promise and there is for certain kind of a work or a service, and the other party replies back either in the form of an acceptance or they stipulates terms and conditions. So basically, like in this scenario, there was a promise that if you do this work, I will pay you 100 dirham. If the other party simply does the work, it's a unilateral contract. But if the other party stipulates his terms and condition that, okay, I will do the work, but I will do it only for 1 hour or 2 hours. So this kind of a mutual communication comes under bilateral contract. Yes, as a general or as a standard way, it's a bilateral contract. When we say like a unilateral, it's something not like a signed or something, because when the contract is signed, it's like an acceptance. And so see, a contract is like an agreement. So for example, there is an advertisement which has been put on the newspaper, okay, that if you find this person, you will get a reward of $1,000, and you find that person and give it to that party, even though you had not, this is like a general promise, so anyone can go and fulfill it. So whoever is fulfilling it, the person who is promising is binding to do that, like that. However, let's say the same example, that same party who is advertising, instead of advertising, he makes a contract with any organization and say that you find this person and I will pay you this amount. And in return, the other party gives their conditions, and there is some kind of a negotiation, and finally both of them come to some kind of a acceptance in the form of a signature or maybe a small agreement or a contract. So that kind of thing is called bilateral, when there is a response from both the sides. So generally, yes, in any organization is mostly a bilateral. This formal versus informal contracts. Formal contracts require a specific form or method of formation to be enforceable. Formal contracts are normally sealed with the corporate company seal. Some countries require a public notarization. So basically, for a formal contract, there is a standard template which has been there for each and every organization. And whenever any contract has to be entered into, that template is used. All other contracts are informal contracts or simple contracts. For this, no special form is required. except for certain types of contract that must be in writing. Purchase orders are generally considered informal contracts. So purchase order can be considered as an informal contract. However, they are still enforceable by the law. They also have their own terms and conditions, but there are some cases wherein there is very simple purchase order, wherein just a quantity, price, and something like that is mentioned. So it can be considered as an informal contracting. A contract can be considered either an express contract or implied contract. When we say express contract or implied contract it means that some things are very clearly mentioned. It's either written or it's verbally discussed, and there are something which is implied. It may be implied from the nature of the work, or from the law of that country. So it is something which I don't need to discuss there like that. An express contract is one in which the terms are stated verbally, either orally or in writing. So it is clearly been expressed in some form. Implied contract is one in which some of the terms are not committed by words. So in implied contracts, as I told you, it's not somewhere written, it is not somewhere discussed. So when, for example, there is a promise I made and the other party is doing the work, and we are, working in, let's say both of us are in Qatar, it is automatically implied that we have to follow the law of Qatar. I don't need to write it down or need to get it acceptance from the other party that, see, you have to follow the law of Qatar. Because we are already in the constituency of Qatar, we have to follow the rules and regulation of Qatar. So it is implied by nature or by the location. Contract that is implied in fact when the circumstance indicate that agreement has been reached. This is inferred by court from the conduct of the parties. Contract that is implied in law, sometimes called quasi-contract, is one that should have been formed even though in actually it was not. It is used when court wishes to create an obligation upon a main contracting party to avoid injustice. So when you say quasi-contract, it is something which is implied in the law and which can be enforced by the court, that yes, this even though this terms is not mentioned here, it is clearly implied. Like as I told, in the unilateral contract, if there is a kind of a promise made that if you do this work, we will pay you this amount, and if any party or any person does that work, and if the promising person doesn't pay it, and if suppose the matter goes to the court, and the party says that even though I promise, there was no any agreement between the two parties, so why should I pay him? The court can say that it's clear because you have made a promise, it's implied by the nature to pay you once the work is done. So such kind of court can use their own judgment that certain nature of things are implied and they don't need to be written down. Executed versus executory contracts. Contracts are classified according to the stages of performance. A contract that has been performed is an executed contract. A contract that has been performed is an executory contract. If one party has fully performed but the other has not, the contract is said to be executed on the side and the executor on the other, and it is classified as executory.